أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم.
I am Chief Robert Gladstone from the Shwai Village in Chilliwack, British Columbia. In solidarity with my brother Bilal Chima and the Muslim brothers and sisters, I'd like to share a few words in a prayer song. January 29th marks 4 years since the senseless shooting of the Islamic Cultural Center of Quebec City. Many were left mourning as we tried to reconcile how such hatred existed in the world, where someone would take innocent people's lives. There were fathers, brothers, sons, grandparents, neighbors, and friends. Today, communities across cultures in the country remember those who lost those they loved and families that have been torn apart by this act of cowardice and violence. Families lost people they loved, and their lives have and will never be the same. No matter what our own identities, formed by religion, gender, race, nationality, or culture, underneath all of this, we all are humans. We all hope for the same things. We hope for a warm home, a family and friends, a community where we feel safe. I send you this message, and I share with you folks a prayer song, if I may. A prayer song from the Fraser Valley. Hey, 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 hi,
What happened 4 years ago tonight in Quebec City was an unthinkable tragedy. We cannot and we will not ever forget. That's why January 29th will officially become the National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City Mosque Attack and of action against Islamophobia. Le 29 janvier deviendra officiellement la journée nationale de commémoration de l'attentat à la mosquée de Québec et d'action contre l'islamophobie. Every year on this day, we will honor the victims and we will recommit ourselves to fighting the discrimination and hate that took them from us. No one should ever be afraid because of the way they pray, not in Canada and not anywhere around the world. Today and always, we must stand strong and united because that will always be our path forward.
Hello, I'm Mayor Kennedy Stewart, and it's my privilege to acknowledge the Day of Remembrance and Action on Islamophobia on behalf of my council colleagues from the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. Last year, Council passed a motion that the Day of Remembrance and Action on Islamophobia would become one of Vancouver's official observances, which would be marked each year on January 29th. This year, we commemorate the 4th anniversary of the Quebec shootings, where a white gunman entered the Islamic Cultural Center Mosque in Quebec City and opened fire on dozens of Muslim worshippers. By the time the shooting had ended, 6 people had been tragically killed and 19 more injured. The purpose of this day is to serve as an official commemoration of the victims and their loved ones and to promote awareness and education about Islamophobia. Muslim communities around the world, across Canada, and in Vancouver were and continue to be affected by this and other acts of hate, racism, and Islamophobia. It is more important than ever that the lessons learned from this senseless act of violence remain at the forefront of the public consciousness so they are never repeated. Today we join with the Al Jamia Mosque, the oldest mosque in BC and our Muslim community, to pause and reflect in honor of the Day of Remembrance and Action on Islamophobia. Thank you.
Today marks 4 years since the tragic attack at a Quebec City mosque that left 6 worshippers dead and 19 others injured. On this tragic anniversary, we take the time to remember those who lost their lives in this heinous attack and send our sincerest condolences to the family, friends, and loved ones of those killed. On behalf of our entire caucus, I want to reaffirm our commitment to fighting Islamophobia and building a better BC, one without the hatred and bigotry that drives such horrific attacks.
Today is the National Day of Remembrance, to remember those people who perished on the 29th of January. And it's a day to commemorate and to observe the hatred and the racism and all of those horrible things that exist in our community. And I'd ask all of you to take a moment, and a moment of silence, and to remember those people who perished for no reason, all as a result of hatred, mindless hatred that took the lives of innocent people in Quebec.
Ibrahima Berry, Mamadou Tanu Berry, Khalid Belkacemi, Abu Bakr Tabdi, Abdul Karim Hassan, Azadine Sufyan. We will never forget these names. We can't. We will remember. I'm very pleased, and I know I speak for my colleagues, my friends, my community, with the decision taken by our federal government that declares January 29th the National Day of Remembrance for victims of the mosque attack. Just like any other night, on this cold January evening, 4 years ago, just before 8 p.m., these brothers, along with 47 others, had gathered at their mosque in the Saint Foy neighborhood of Quebec City for their final obligatory prayer of that day. They came to submit to their Lord in prayer. Little did the 6 know that they would forever leave this world behind. A halal grocery store owner, a professor at University Laval, 3 civil servants, and a pharmacy worker. They were Canadians. They became martyrs while observing the most sacred and beloved acts of their Creator, the Salah. 19 others would be injured that night, many more lives forever altered. Why? This person was motivated by a visceral hatred for Muslim immigrants. That's what the judge said. How much hate can one have that would lead him, her, them to carry out an attack this way, savagely shooting defenseless and innocent humans, all primary breadwinners for their family? For what? Because they choose to love and submit to their Creator. We remember, we will never forget. We pray for the deceased and the broken families left behind. We gather to remember, keep their memories alive, bring attention to the very real problems and consequences of unchecked racial hatred, bigotry, and racism. We are in this together. We are one when combating this societal menace. Our lives may be disturbed by the current pandemic. It's unfortunate we can't gather in person. We hope to do just that next year, as we did last year, and every year after that, to remember these fallen martyrs and through them, other Canadian victims of terror. But tonight, we are joined by friends from all levels of government, law enforcement, and community to share in this remembrance. I welcome you here to this virtual remembrance on behalf of Islam Unravelled, a grassroots organization dedicated to bridging gaps between all faith groups, and through this process explain Islam and its beauty at a pace that is comfortable for those who want to learn. So welcome. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. This memorial is being conducted across vast swaths of unceded territory. I speak to you from the unceded territory of the Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo First Nations. We have many acknowledgements and thanks to share. Haroon and I will share these throughout the evening with you. We apologize in advance if we miss someone. Your microphones will be kept on mute. This is a remembrance, not a press conference. Haroon and I will be available to speak to any members of the press after the conclusion of this formal portion on this meeting portal. I will call on each speaker, and as I do that, our technical teams will open up their respective mics. You have the ability to turn your mics on as well, speakers. Just remember to mute yourself at the conclusion of your time. I would like to call on Hafiz Hamadullah, someone who is memorized the Quran in its entirety, to start off, as is tradition, with the recitation from the Holy Book, the Quran. Hafiz Hamadullah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير صدق الله العظيم.
Now I'm going to call on someone, my co-event facilitator, co-MC, if you may, to say a few words. He's going to share some responsibilities with me. This is my older brother, someone that's whose family has sacrificed a lot for the community. Someone who I think is one of the leading caretakers of our oldest mosque in Vancouver, the Al Jamia on West 8th. Many of you have been there. All of you have probably heard of it. Someone that's dedicated his entire life to community and service. My brother Haroon Khan.
Thank you, Bilal. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Peace be unto you. I come to you today from the Al Jamia Masjid, Vancouver. This is the first mosque established in British Columbia in 1963. And as Bilal had noted, my father and many people put their hands together and their hearts together to establish this mosque. And for generations, it has been the seat of our spiritual existence here in BC, and with the blessings of God, we have many mosques and places of worship here. But today, our mosque, churches, synagogues, temples, mandars, places of assembly are empty due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Normally, this place would be bustling with activity, but in this day, we are having the very solemn duty to acknowledge the anniversary on a cold winter evening when a gunman came in to a mosque just like this, and people were standing at worship, and that young man opened fire, killing 6, grievously wounding 19 others, and shattering families, and causing what was really a very emotional time for people across this nation, because how could something like this happen in Canada? How could something like this happen in a peaceful nation? How can something like this happen in a place of worship? It could have happened in your church. It could have happened in your temple. It could have happened in any place, but it happened in a mosque. And Canadians responded. And in this masjid, there was a candlelight vigil that night. The next day, 1,000 people came. The day after, another 1,000 people came, all coming to bear witness and to really just say that we're all together as a human family, no matter what your race, no matter what your religion is. And this kind of solidarity is what we're marking today. Yesterday, the federal government pronounced that this day will be a national day of mourning from here on in. So we are now living in history. And this history should not be forgotten. Our Jewish brethren who had faced the Holocaust, they recently had their Remembrance Day. And we say these same words, these same two words: never again should something like this happen to anyone. It's an abomination against the human spirit. But the reality is these things do happen, and we must be vigilant, we must be strong, and we must be united to ensure that something like this never happens again. Now, my dear respected brothers and sisters, we are going to have a number of speakers that will be joining us, but I would like to acknowledge the names of the 6 who were killed in their mosque: Azuddin Sufyan, Khalid Belkacemi, Ibrahima Bari, Abu Bakr Tatbi, Abdul Karim Hussain, and Mamadou Tanhu Bari died in this gruesome attack. 19 were injured, and again, many families were shattered. I wear this green square today to mark this occasion, and we encourage you to do the same as this program continues. So with that, we do have our speakers who will be speaking. So Bilal, if you would like to come with the first speaker, and then we will commence the program. Thank you.
I'm going to call on Constable Shiraz Hanif, the police, part of the community engagement team for the department, and has been on the front line of investigating hate crimes targeting Muslim women, minorities, and other members of the public on public transit. He has worked closely with the Islam Unravelled team on cases reported to us from the Muslim community.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Hello everyone. I am presenting from the city of New Westminster, British Columbia, which I would like to acknowledge and recognize as the unceded territory of the Quebec First Nations people. I also want to thank Chief Rhonda Larrabee and her family for sharing their land with us. I'm Constable Hanif with the Metro Vancouver Transit Police, currently assigned to the Community Engagement Team. We, the Metro Vancouver Transit Police, are sincerely honored to have been invited to participate in this very worthy event, marking the somber anniversary of the senseless and tragic event that took place on January 29th of 2017. This act of terror, fueled by hate, affected many, many people. It affected me as well. I felt 2 sets of emotions. First off, it affected me as a police officer who has taken an oath to protect civilians at all costs, even if that cost requires me to sacrifice my own life to save others. Disgusting and disturbing incidents such as the one that took place at the Islamic Cultural Center of Quebec City 4 years ago are devastating for most people. This includes first responders. As I have said in prior interviews, at the end of our shifts, we take off our tools, our uniforms, and lock them in a locker and go home. Fortunately, tragic events we see, hear of, or deal with, such as this, we can't leave them behind in the locker room and go home. They go home with us. Aside from being a police officer and feeling guilty for not being able to protect victims in such heinous crimes or not being able to prevent such incidents, I am also a Muslim and share the emotions with the Muslim community in the hours, days, months following this unnecessary and cowardly act of hate-fueled violence. I graduated from the police academy in 2017, and soon after I was approached by the higher-ups of transit police asking me if I would help connect with the Muslim community to deliver a message of inclusion and message of you do matter. I was quickly linked up with brothers like Derek Dea, Corporal Anthony Statham of BC Hate Crimes. And since that time together, we have presented to tens of thousands of respected members of the Muslim community at dozens of events. Through this connection, I've also had the opportunity to work with some victims of hate crimes, which, alhamdulillah, have led to some valuable friendships with some very amazing people. I would like to take a brief moment to urge everyone to report incidents. If you feel as if you have or are experiencing a hate-motivated crime, please report it. If you don't report it, then it seems as if the issue doesn't exist. If the issue doesn't exist, we can't ask for resources to remedy a problem that doesn't exist. We at the Transit Police are committed to providing a safe and harassment-free transit system for all, regardless of your color, who you pray to, who you love. It doesn't matter, we are here for you. If you experience violence in progress, call 911. If you are on the transit system within the Metro Vancouver area and experience an incident, but think that calling the police might get the perpetrator's attention focused onto you, you can report via text messaging. This currently only works for transit police on the transit system, and the phone number is 877777. That's 8 followed by 5 sevens. If you wish to report an incident that is not actively happening any longer and the perpetrator is no longer present, please look up your local police department's non-emergency phone number and call it in. For the transit police, that number is 604-515-8300. The transit system is loaded with CCTV cameras. There are many witnesses. If you report the incident close as possible to the time of occurrence, there is a very high likelihood of catching the perpetrator and forwarding charges. As I have said before, the transit system is one of the worst places to commit an act of violence or criminal offense. Before I sign off here, I'd like to say that as a Muslim who was born and raised in the city of Vancouver, and as a police officer whose current assignment includes the city of Vancouver, I would like to sincerely thank Mayor Kennedy and the City of Vancouver Council for proclaiming January 29th of 2021 as a day of remembrance and action on Islamophobia. Just gonna say a quick little prayer before I sign off here. May the Creator bless us with the courage to protect, the strength to preserve peace. May the Creator grant the victims of this heinous crime the highest levels of heaven. And may the Creator give the families of the victims patience and strength. Hope. Assalamu alaikum, jazakallah. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah, Karen. Thank you very much, Constable Shiraz Hanif. We appreciate your service and your protection. May Allah protect and guide you in the very important work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My dear respected brothers and sisters, moving on to our next speaker. Before I do, with respect to Islamophobia and hate crimes in particular, women of faith are impacted more than most, and because they wear the hijab, they cover their hair. Those outward appearances of faith are such that some are targeted. And we're very blessed that the sisters in our community and in communities all over the world are very strong and very resilient. And but it's something to bear in mind that we all need to be on the lookout for one another. Now, our next speaker has done tremendous work as a volunteer. She's worked with the Muslim Food Bank, and Sister Hiba Alodat is a Syrian refugee and a new Canadian. She's an honor roll student, a scholarship recipient, a youth, and a woman leader. She's volunteered at the Muslim Care Center on the downtown east side, ministering to the homeless population of all faiths, and has done tremendous work with that organization. Her passion and resilience are an inspiration to our community and youth. So with that, I introduce Sister Hiba Alodat. Assalamu alaikum. Sister, you can start. You can unmute yourself on your phone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you
Wa
for
alaikum.
attending this event. I'll be sharing some of my personal experiences with you all. Now, I remember when I first came here 5 years ago, I never imagined that what I saw in the media toward Muslim women would happen to me in my own neighborhood, which is the place I felt secure in after fleeing Syria only looking for safety. I recently realized that racist people are not only the ignorant ones who need to be educated, but even the people who have the best education can also have the same disease. As I'm attending college, I encountered a biased professor who enjoyed presenting Islam in a negative and misleading way. On the other hand, there are many people who claim that they want to rescue Muslim women from their religion. But do Muslim women need saving? My answer is yes, but never from Islam, because Islam for me is what gives me hope and makes me resilient despite everything that happened and still happening. Yes, we need saving from the people who are full of hate and the people who are spreading that hate towards Muslim and Islam. As we know, wearing hijab in the West is challenging. Muslim women represent Islam every time they step out of their house. For me personally, the hijab is a source of power and pride. Now, not all women, especially young girls, have the same ability or strength to face all of this hate that is directed to them just because they are visible Muslims. Many are afraid to practice this beautiful thing that I'm wearing. Many are even afraid to pray outside because it's a risk. Anytime, any moment, someone can come and attack her, whether that's physically or verbally. Now, if you remember what I said at the beginning, I had a personal experience that was very traumatizing and unexpected. A few days before our special celebration that we do each Ramadan, I was attacked on transit in front of my mom. As I said, I never imagined such a thing happening to me, because you simply don't go out expecting an attack from someone, from a stranger who hates you and will manifest his hate or her hate with violence behavior. I only shared a few incidents that I have personally faced in my first 5 years in Canada. Of course, people who want to corrupt this society and spread hate are louder and tend to get more attention than the people who are open-minded and looking for change. What we should do is to acknowledge the problem and to be louder with education and action. As a Muslim youth, I believe we have a powerful presence in our community. We should keep educating ourselves and the people around us. I always believe that it's our responsibility to do everything we can to be part of making our country, Canada, a better place and a safe place for everyone. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, sister. We really appreciate your very kind words and very enlightening words. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower you with all the blessings and protect you. And as you draw wisdom in the lessons you've learned in your own life and in how you impact other people around you, we really appreciate you. So I thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum. So now we'd like to move on to our next speaker. He's a very dynamic individual that I've had the honor and pleasure of working with well over a decade, Mr. Fouad Abbasi. Brother Fouad is the Civic Engagement Director for the Muslim Association of Canada, Vancouver chapter, MAC. MAC is one of the largest national Muslim organizations serving the Muslim community and general public in Canada. Brother Fouad, if you can speak on, we look forward to hearing from you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Am I heard clearly?
Yes.
Perfect. Start with the supplication, inshallah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I greet you with the greeting of Islam, which is peace be upon you. It gives me great pleasure to join with you in commemorating and remembering the lost lives of our brothers, of our Canadian loved ones, amongst distinguished guests, speakers, and people in the public at large. A quick introduction about MAC, which is the Muslim Association of Canada. It is a charitable nonprofit organization, a grassroots social movement that introduces and provides services and programs for holistic education and personal development for Canadian Muslims. MAC also has a national reach with chapters in 13 cities, 18 mosques, 9 schools, full-time schools that is, and 20 weekend schools as well, in addition to 4 daycares. In sum, MAC has a national reach, and it has fostered the development of individuals in the Canadian community so that we stay integrated, although distinct as Muslims within the fabric of Canada and the mosaic fabric of Canada. You all heard the atrocity that happened. Our heart and souls and minds go out to the loved ones that we have lost, the lives that were senselessly killed, the families that are left to pick up the pieces, the children in hurt, in mourning. As a father of 2 kids, I can only fathom what these families are going through. I can absolutely not put myself in their shoe to have an iota or a glimpse of what they're feeling right now, even after 4 years. Also, it is a reminder for us that this hate, that this act of violence and terrorism that actually occurred was driven by none other than hate. So there's an opportunity for us to look at remediating these problems within our communities. And as Brother Harun had said, it is unfathomable that something like this could happen in Canada, such a peaceful country. So we are in pain, we are in mourning, and we continue to feel the hurt and the pain. Since the atrocity, something that we'd like to highlight is that hate groups in Canada have only grown in size and influence, and the rising of the tide of white supremacy movement in our nation continues to be unabated. Hate crimes, particularly against Canadian Muslims, have steadily increased, and statistics by NCCM organization, by the VPD, by the RCMP, the numbers tell a big picture and reinforces what we're just saying. Now add to that the pandemic that just happened, and now you've got supremacy groups that are out there brewing ideas and brewing hate, really, conspiracy theories that perhaps even COVID-19 is related to Islam and Muslims. And unfortunately, we see that more Muslims are being targeted. We are very thankful. We're very thankful that the government has now acknowledged that January 29th will be a day of remembrance of these lost lives. And I'd like to highlight also the effort of all the Muslim organizations and non-Muslim organizations alike that went and rallied behind this to happen. And I would like also to underline the great work that MAC has done this year, particularly in galvanizing the work or the letter that concluded in a joint letter signed by 75 organizations across the country, coast to coast, includes a number of advocacy groups, mosques, centers, think tanks, and so on, that came together and wrote a letter that hit home with our Honorable Prime Minister, which we're hoping that it was also a galvanized effort that led to the acknowledgement of January 29th. So for that, we're very thankful. Also, this decision also affirms that the government is committed, and their commitment to combating Islamophobia, number one, by recognizing it first, and then doing the actions that need to be done to make sure that this doesn't happen again. To that front, there's multiple priorities at work that the government needs to work on. And when it comes to that, we're thinking about addressing the white supremacy and the rise of white supremacy groups out there, and also being able to designate these groups as terrorist groups and overcoming the systemic racism in government institutions, security and law enforcement as well. Indeed, there's a lot of work ahead, but alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the work that everybody's doing has culminated in, number one, the recognition of this day, on the commitment of the government to do work towards combating Islamophobia. On behalf of MAC and the Muslim community, I want to thank the Prime Minister, particularly, and the government for their leadership and speaking against Islamophobia, pardon me. Now, we hope that what we're doing is a small effort to honor the people that lost their lives on that day, on the sacred place, which is the mosque, a place where no one should expect to be targeted, subhanAllah. I'm reminded by the poem of Maya Angelou, who said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Like I said, as a father of 2 kids, I can only imagine what those people have felt. But I'm hoping that after all the effort and the work that we have done, that they will feel that we have honored them in the effort that we're trying to do here. I thank you very much, and I congratulate everyone, and I appreciate the support of all the organizations far and wide across the country in getting behind. And I too remember Je me souviens, and I've got my green square as well. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Fawad. I really appreciate your words, and they certainly resonate. You know, 4 years to the day when this terrible incident happened, we had support from all corners, from our city, from our province, and federally. And we're going to be bringing on a city councillor from the city of Vancouver. But before I do, I would certainly like to acknowledge the leadership and the great cooperation and heartfelt work, real work, of the city of Vancouver and the former Mayor Gregor Robertson and his team. My friend Michael McGee, I believe, is on this chat. And I remember when I was here the day after, and we had press and we had different folks coming here at the mosque to talk to me about this incident. And he said, well, Haroon, I'll see you at the vigil tonight. And I said, sure. And then I thought to myself, what vigil? And that evening, 1,000 people were here. And the evening after, another 1,000 people. And then some days later, the Jack Pool Plaza, they lit the torch, the Olympic torch, in memory of this horrible atrocity. But this shows how beautiful people are, how people can come together and make something good, make something inspiring, to really show that something like this is not who we are. It's not who we are as a people, as Canadians. And as a Muslim, we see that we're all made from one soul, and this kind of solidarity that we share with one another, it really shows us what it is to be human. And that's a very beautiful thing. So my dear respected brothers and sisters, I'm honored to introduce the new Vancouver City Councillor under the leadership of Mayor Kennedy Stewart, Vancouver City Councillor Christine Boyle. Christine, I've known for many, many years as a volunteer on a number of boards, and Christine is a very dear friend of our community, and she is a community organizer, a climate justice activist, and United Church minister. Christine was part of the unanimous Mayor and City Council resolution designating January 29th, the Day of Remembrance and Action on Islamophobia. She's been a strong ally and friend to the Muslim community of Vancouver, and she's to know her is to really have a lot of love for this woman. So Christine, we welcome you to this program. Christina Boyle.
Thank you, Haroon, for that introduction. It really is an honor to be here on behalf of the City of Vancouver to remember and to recommit to action on Islamophobia and on white supremacy and on hate. I was fortunate to be in the Al Jamia Mosque to read this proclamation last year, and though the circumstances have changed, I'm honored to get to do so again this year. I want to acknowledge Councillor Swanson, who is also with us, and I don't see other councillors, but I know, as you heard, this was a unanimous proclamation and follows a long history of many past councils of being committed to being in solidarity with the Muslim community and working together to address hate in all the forms that it shows up in our city. So I will just read the proclamation on behalf of the city. Whereas on January 29th, 2017, a white gunman entered the Islamic Cultural Center Mosque in Quebec City and opened fire on dozens of Muslim worshippers. And whereas by the time the shooting had ended, 6 people had been tragically killed and 19 more were injured. Ibrahima Berry, Mamadou Tanu Berry, Khalid Belkacema, Abdubakar Thabdi, Elda Karim Hazani, and
Azadid Sufini lost their lives that night. And whereas Muslim communities across Canada were and continue to be affected by this and other acts of hate, racism, white supremacy, and Islamophobia, including the anti-Islam rally that had been planned for August 19th, 2017 outside Vancouver City Hall. And whereas to commemorate January 29th, Muslim communities in Vancouver have held vigils, discussions, and other events, including an annual vigil during evening prayers at the Vancouver Al Jamia Mosque on 8th Avenue, which is the oldest mosque in BC. And whereas the cities of Toronto, Mississauga, Brampton, Markham, Hamilton, and Windsor have all designated January 29th as a day of remembrance and action on Islamophobia, many municipalities across Canada commemorate the events of January 29th with their Muslim community partners, and that day has now been recognized federally. Now, therefore, I, Christine Boyle, on behalf of Mayor Stewart, do hereby proclaim January 29th, 2021 as a day of remembrance and action on Islamophobia in the city of Vancouver. Thank you for this time. It is an honor to be with you on this somber occasion and to recommit to action. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Haroon.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you, Christine. We appreciate you, and we appreciate Vancouver City Council and the Mayor for all the great work that you continue to do, not just for our community, but for all communities. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
My dear respected brothers and sisters, we're going to be now bringing on a member of the Legislative Assembly. But before I do, 4 years ago, again, to the day, all levels of government really came together to go and commemorate this thing and to really accommodate the people who stood and gathered in solidarity in vast numbers. And so I would like to thank the previous Premier, Christy Clark, and the provincial government at that time for assisting in ensuring that the occasion was marked in safety and remembrance. So I'm very, very honored to introduce a woman from Surrey serving as an MLA for the NDP government under Premier John Horgan. She acts as the Parliamentary Secretary for Anti-Racism Initiatives, member MLA Rachna Singh. Sister Rachna was elected as the MLA for Surrey Green Timbers in 2017. She is the convener of the special committee to appoint a police complaint commissioner in her role as MLA. She has been serving her community and the citizens of BC for many years. And I've personally know her and her husband for many years as well. And they've done tremendous things for the community. And as a sitting MLA, she's always available, always there, and always ready with a great smile. So Sister Rachna, we welcome you to this program.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Haroon Bhai and Bilal Bhai for your warm welcome. I'm so grateful to be speaking to you from the shared traditional territories of the Semiahmoo, Katzie, Kwikitlem, Kwantlen, Kikite, and Swasan First Nations. And I'm honored to be joining you today to this event to mark the National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec Mosque Attack and action against Islamophobia. I'm also joined today by a number of my colleagues. George Heyman is here, Nikki Sharma, Bowen Ma, Rona Ray Leonard, Nick Simons, Henry Yao, Harry Vance, Minister Harry Vance, Jagru Brar, Ginny Sims. I hope I haven't missed anybody, but these were the ones I could see on the screen. 4 years ago in Quebec City, 6 people were murdered and many more injured in a place of safety and worship. The lives of their families, friends, and communities changed forever. Our country was changed too. A holy place was violated. This was an attack that not only devastated this country, but shook communities across the world. I remember how I felt on hearing that news. The shock of knowing that a man walked into a sacred space and opened fire on other people just because of their beliefs and their color of skin. I still feel the hurt today, and my heart is with all those who lost a loved one that day, and everyone else who's still impacted by the violent action of hateful individuals who commit Islamophobia acts. Please know that you are not alone. We stand alongside with you in your grief. Diversity and equality are part of who we are as British Columbians and as Canadians. These are values that so many of us hold close in our daily lives. Yet 4 years ago, the act of terrorism showed us what happens when we lose sight of these things and let hatred and violence guide us. As we come together in mourning on the day, we must reaffirm our commitment to stand against racism, violence, and discrimination. It is this commitment that is driving my work as BC's Parliamentary Secretary for Anti-Racism Initiatives. In this role, I will lead the work on introducing BC's first anti-racism legislation and a better approach to data collection to ensure that we are supporting all British Columbians in a way that is fair and equitable, regardless of our race, faith, or skin color. While these are decisions made by our government, it's important to recognize the years of advocacy and grassroots organizing that has led us to this point. Education is a powerful tool in the fight for equity and equality. By learning to identify the language of racism and oppression, we can better respond to discrimination in our communities. But this isn't only about language. It is also about using education as a way to understand all the complexities of our histories and to break down barriers that exist today. That's why we will be launching an anti-racism awareness campaign as part of a recent 1.3 million investment to make BC safer and more inclusive for everyone. And we have expanded the Resilience BC Anti-Racism Network and increased support for community projects focused on addressing racism and hate across the province. We cannot do this alone. I am grateful to all the advocates, stakeholders, and organizations who stood alongside us in this fight against racism and hate. It is their dedication and hard work that has led us to this point. As we grow as a society, we get to know each other and understand the culture, beliefs, and ancestry of people in our communities. At a time when Islamophobia, hate, and bigotry are ever present here at home and around the world, it takes all our voices to challenge racist acts, condemn hate speech, and stand up for a more equitable society. Now is the time to come together to build a stronger province and stronger communities. And I also want to acknowledge the words that Sister Hiba just shared with us. The pain that you felt, sister, I just don't even have the words to explain that. But I want to tell you that you are not alone in this. We are standing with you, and we will fight racism, not just today, but every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Rachna. We really appreciate your very powerful words. It's very well taken. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate all the work you do for all communities, for us all standing together. Thank you. We're going to be bringing a representative of the Vancouver Police Department. And again, I flash back to that day when this happened. And there was a real climate of apprehension, caution, and fear. Would our mosque be attacked? There were threats against this mosque. There were threats to other mosques. To actually feel unsafe in a place where you should feel the safest in your place of worship is not a good feeling. And to assuage that, we were engaged right from the moment this happened by representatives of the VPD, the RCMP, and other security agencies. And the Vancouver Police Department, under the leadership of Chief Adam Palmer, Deputy Chief George Chu, and our next speaker, Jackie Abbott, Detective Constable, who is working very diligently as a hate crimes investigator with the Vancouver Police Department. I'd just like to acknowledge the long-standing working relationship with our mosque and mosques all over, with Islam Unravelled, with the many outreach programs that have been done across the city and across this province. Our engagement is there because we all have to keep one another safe. And I'm very glad that many members of our community have come forward and have joined police forces in Vancouver, in New Westminster, and with the RCMP. And we hope to have more people, our young men and women, join those ranks to help protect and serve all Canadians. And of course, the Metro Vancouver Transit Police, as ably represented by Constable Shiraz Hanif, we salute you, we thank you, and may the Almighty protect you when you deliver your duty. So we appreciate you very much. And with that, I would now like to bring on Detective Constable Jackie Abbott to speak on behalf of the Vancouver Police Department. Jackie.
Assalamu alaikum. And thank you for the invitation and privilege of speaking tonight on behalf of the Vancouver Police Department. I acknowledge that I'm presenting on the lands, the unceded lands of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Today, on this important day of remembrance, we gather to honor all those affected by this horrific tragedy, the victims, survivors, community, and fellow Canadians. We reflect on how the most extreme expression of hate manifested itself in the most violent of acts and the tragic loss of life that occurred in one of the most sacred places at the Islamic Cultural Center of Quebec City 4 years ago. It's especially difficult to absorb the impact that evil act has had on those that were directly impacted. And this is something I reflect on often in my continued commitment in advocating for the safety of community. We must also collaborate and strategize on how we can mitigate a violent and hateful act like this from ever happening through information sharing, strong relationships, ongoing education and training. We stand united as people and allies and work together for solutions that foster acceptance and understanding of religious and cultural freedoms. The Vancouver Police Department are both partners and protectors of the Muslim Islamic community, and we are committed to making Vancouver a safer city for everyone. During these times of unrest and uncertainty in the world, you might think, how might we be able to achieve this? Well, it starts with partnerships between community and police to foster further understanding and build trust. You are the eyes and ears of the community and can help us understand your concerns and experiences. By reporting incidents of hate, bias, and prejudice, it can make the police aware of emerging issues and trends. It gives us the opportunity to investigate, to identify individuals, and pursue charges when we can. If there's barriers to reporting, we can work together to come up with solutions. This important work cannot be achieved without community. The Vancouver Police Department needs you, the community, to work with us, to report incidents of concern, to join us as police officers, and to promote your culture and share your values and traditions. During the last year, while facing the pandemic, we have seen the best of human collaboration and caring for each other. However, we have also seen the number of hate incidents and crimes rise. We're all leaders, and what we say makes a difference. I believe that no one is born with the capacity to hate. It's a learned response. Tonight, we stand as one in solidarity and support of one another. Let us continue in this direction to effect positive change and to challenge bias, prejudice, and hate together. I look forward to continuing with this important work and for further opportunities to connect with your community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Detective Constable Abbott. We salute you. We pray for you and your colleagues as you serve and protect, especially during this time, a difficult time for all of us. We have we're about halfway through. Thank you for your patience. If there's anything, recommendations or any suggestions, don't hesitate to write a private chat to myself or to Haroon. We're always open to suggestions. I know this is odd. This is different. It's times like this we want to be together. This is how we breathe life into community. But this is the new reality. We adjust and we move forward, and we pray that this year things get better, and that we're able to connect at some point later on this year. And inshallah, God willing, next year we can be together in person when we commemorate this day. There's a lot of thanks. I know I said that at the outset. I'm going to say a few before we introduce our next speaker. Of course, I want to start with the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, and also his colleagues in Cabinet, the Honourable Harjit Sajjan, Member of Parliament from Vancouver South, the Honourable Bardish Chagger, the Member of Parliament from Waterloo, and also the Honourable Carla Quattro, the Member of Parliament from Delta. Thank you for being here. I'll also take a moment to acknowledge some other members of Parliament from Ottawa. Randeep Sarai, Member of Parliament for Surrey Centre, a great friend and support to the community. And of course, Sukh Dhaliwal, the Member of Parliament for Surrey Newton, and MP Ken Hardy, Fleetwood Port Kells, and also Don Davies from Vancouver Kingsway. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for taking a little bit of time today to be with us. Thank you. Before we go on, I'll also mention the leaders of all the parties in the legislature. Of course, the Honourable John Horgan. He's been a tremendous source of support to the community, doing a lot of outreach and connections with the community all across the province. Thank you so much. And I also like to thank Sonia Firstnow, the leader of the Green Party of British Columbia. Thank you for the recent work that you've done to outreach and to learn and to connect with the community. And of course, Shirley Bond, leader of the official opposition in the legislature of British Columbia. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sending that video and sharing in this moment with us. So next up, I'd like to introduce someone that I'd like to consider a friend. I'd like to call this person a friend, someone that's been working with us, especially under Islam Unravelled, for a number of years, and always connecting with us, working with us as we develop safety protocols for the different mosques, you know, giving us hints and tips on how to combat folks that come and try to intimidate us during our times of prayer. This person has been there at all times, anytime that we've called on him. And this is Corporal Anthony Statham of the RCMP Division, part of the RCMP team responsible for investigating hate crimes in British Columbia. Anthony has worked closely, as I said, with the Islam Unravelled team and the Muslim community on building bridges of trust and understanding between officers of public safety and the Muslim community. He has personally visited and presented at the majority of the mosques in the Lower Mainland. And many of our folks in our community, the congregations, know him, trust him. When they see him, he brings a smile to our faces. So without further ado, I call on Corporal Anthony Statham of the RCMP Division.
Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking from the traditional territories of the Kakite First Nation. It's truly an honor and very humbling to be speaking to everyone on this important day of remembrance. As of today, I've been a hate crime investigator for exactly 4 years, less 1 day. It just so happened that my first day on this job was January 30th, 2017. And so I walked into work that day deeply affected by the tragedy that had unfolded in Quebec City the night before, and also with my mind racing about what I had to do and what the police collectively had to do to prevent something like this from happening again. And truly that event, and sadly other events, attacks on places of faith, and the attack in Christchurch in 2019 have largely come to define much of the work that I've done with BC hate crimes. We often talk about how safe Canada is compared to other places, but that's small comfort to survivors of tragedies, families and communities who've lost loved ones to senseless violence. We also talk about the robustness of our democracy, and that's something I happen to believe in. It's something that is worth investing in, I believe worth fighting for every day. Under our charter, we have certain fundamental freedoms, which includes freedom of religion, freedom of belief, and freedom of peaceful assembly. The attack at Centre Culturel Islamique was an attack on all those things. It was terrorism. It was an attack on our democracy. In reparation of those things, the first thing we need to do is remember the victims. So I can speak for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in saying that recognition of January 29th as an official day of remembrance is also an important step in that reparation. Since 2017, in my capacity with BC Hate Crimes, I've had the opportunity to meet with many people from Muslim communities in British Columbia. And what stood out to me is, notwithstanding these tragedies, the news of which is everywhere, at masjids in Quebec City and also in Christchurch in London and no more recently in Toronto, how hard Muslim communities, how much they've had to justify their faith and demonstrate their peaceful intentions as members of Canadian society. And this is because Islamophobia has been and continues to be a real problem. And the fact that there are some groups that are predicated on hatred and fear of neighbors who identify as Muslims, and that then sometimes show up to picket outside of mosques and try and intimidate people, is something that has disproportionately targeted Muslims in Canada for the last 20 years. And concomitant with that has been the increase in hate crimes that have targeted Muslims in our country. In addressing these troubling issues, the police certainly have roles to play. One is in enforcement and prevention. And that's why I'm very pleased that our federal government has equipped the RCMP with more tools that allow us to target violent extremists, with one of the standouts being the addition of 2 right-wing extremist groups to the list of Canada's terrorist entities in 2019, and we expect there'll be more to come. The second thing, and it's probably at the end of the day the most important role, is in community outreach and engagement. And so I'm very grateful for the efforts of organizations like Islam Unravelled in connecting the police with communities, in working toward combating Islamophobia, enhancing public safety, and restoring senses of security for all Canadians. And just anecdotally, I recall in 2019 meeting someone at a mosque in the Vancouver area, and this person telling me that he was afraid to bring his children to the mosque because of incidents that had happened. He was afraid for their safety. It's valid, the way he felt. It's heartbreaking too. And the remedies around a problem like that are long-term goals that we all work towards. And in the day-to-day, to echo what Shiraz and to echo what Jackie have said, if you're attacked physically or verbally, or if you see something that causes you fear or concern, however small it may seem, please reach out to your local police. That's why we're here, and we're here for you. So thank you, Shukran.
Thank you so much, Corporal Statham. Thank you for your commitment and your cooperation throughout our community, especially in the Lower Mainland here. And you said something about someone you had met. I myself was afraid for a time period taking my sons, who were at the time 4 and 3, to the mosque. And this was something that was very powerful and very positive experience for me, being able to take my sons and my dad accompanying us, 3 generations going to the mosque. These were memories, and there was a time period where I felt that maybe it was unsafe to take my son. And but we we thought about this and said, you know, through education and through the work that we're doing, we will affect change. We will increase the collaboration, understanding, and through programs delivered through Islam Unravelled, we are starting to see a difference. We're starting to see so much more interfaith cooperation and collaboration and understanding. And we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going slowly but surely with the support of all levels of government, with the support encouragement from the different cities where we reside, where our mosques sit. We're going to keep building and through that process strengthen our communities. So thank you once again. We have a long list of MLAs, and it just brings me great joy when our elected officials are joining us and are with us. Yes, we're here during a memorial event, we remember, but still we're together. We're looking forward with optimism, and we remember those who lost their lives and those whose lives were forever impacted. But you guys being here with us is just gives us that comfort, so thank you. In no particular order, and I apologize. This is a list that I have, and I've been able to kind of scan our participants. Harwinder Sandhu, Vernon Lunashi, the Honorable George Heyman, Vancouver Fairview, the Honorable Ginny Sims, Surrey Panorama, Mike Starchuk, Surrey Cloverdale, Rana Ray Leonard, Courtney Comox, the Honorable Bowen Ma, North Vancouver Lonsdale, Jagrup Brar, Surrey Fleetwood, the Honorable Bruce Ralston, Surrey Wally, Henry Yao, Richmond South Center, Brittany Anderson, Nelson Creston, the Honorable Nikki Sharma, Vancouver Hastings, the Honorable Harry Baines, Surrey Newton, Teresa Watt, Richmond North Center, Michael Lee, Vancouver Langara, Karen Kirkpatrick, West Vancouver Capilano, Ben Stewart, Kelowna West, Adam Olson, Saanich North and the Islands, and of course, the leaders of the party that I mentioned earlier. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being with us during this time. So now's the time that I'd like to bring some of our representatives from the federal government who have joined us this evening. One of the most dynamic young cabinet members, in my opinion, the MP for Waterloo, the Honorable Burgess Chagar, Federal Minister of Diversity, Inclusion and Youth. Minister Chagar has devoted much time to inclusion and community building, from assisting with recreational sports for kids to volunteering with seniors. She is committed to strengthening the bonds of Canadian communities and has spent a lot of time in her community doing this work. Mr. Chagar has also served in cabinet as leader of the government in the House of Commons and as Minister of Small Business and Tourism. I really appreciate you being here. Mr. Chagar, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Assalamu alaikum. Brother Bilal Chima, I can't tell you how much I have really enjoyed and appreciated the comments that we are hearing tonight. So I just want to commend you and the entire team. It is clear that you have all worked hard, and it is noted and greatly appreciated. I acknowledge that I'm joining you from Waterloo, Ontario, on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. I want to thank Masjid Al Jamia, the British Columbia Muslim Association, Islam Unravelled, the Muslim Care Center, and the many others for your efforts in organizing this virtual gathering and bringing us together on this solemn day of remembrance. As communities linked by a shared faith, I know you understand the necessity of staying connected, even though circumstances might force us to be physically apart. You have stepped up time after time to support each other, to support all those around you. While there are countless examples to choose from, right now I'm thinking particularly about how the Masjid Al Jamia reached out by publicly broadcasting the call to prayer during the holy month of Ramadan, just so community members could remain connected. And on a day like today, it is crucial that we find ways to come together with love and support. 4 years ago, just after evening prayer at the Grand Mosque of Quebec City, 6 brothers, they were sons, fathers, uncles, friends, community builders. They were people They were killed and 19 others were seriously injured in an unspeakable act of violence that shocked the nation, shook Canadians of all backgrounds across the country, shattered the Muslim community in Saint Foy as well as across the country, and scarred Canadians from coast to coast to coast. I can never forget that this happened in a place of worship, a place consecrated to love, peace, and belonging, a place where we should all feel safe, is all the more difficult to bear. Today, we wear green squares over our hearts to honor the victims and the survivors of this tragedy, those who died and those who will live with scars and the memories of that terrifying day, and every Muslim who continues to experience hate and violence across Canada. There are two additional lasting ways to honor and remember the victims of the Quebec City Mosque shooting. On December 1st, 2020, Quebec City inaugurated the Vivre Ensemble, Living Together Memorial, funded through a partnership with the Quebec City, the Government of Quebec, and the Government of Canada through the Department of Canadian Heritage. This touching work is laid out in two zones, one near the Islamic Cultural Center and the other at the heritage site of the Visitation, devoted to the Catholic faith. It symbolizes the meeting of two communities, and it is a poignant reminder that we are stronger and we are better when we are united. And as has been mentioned yesterday, our government announced that January 29th will officially be designated as a National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City Mosque Attack and Action Against Islamophobia. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the Government of Canada is unwavering in its commitment to inclusion while combating systemic racism, prejudice, and discrimination in all of its forms. To eliminate discrimination and hate in communities from coast to coast to coast, we must confront it head on. We must name it and reject it. Islamophobia, xenophobia, and other forms of racism have no place in Canada that we continue to build together. But we know that racism exists in Canada. To wish it wouldn't isn't enough. That's why we introduced the Federal Anti-Racism Secretariat, created under Canada's anti-racism strategy, which engages with all levels of government, civil society, Indigenous peoples, and diverse racialized and religious communities to address, amongst other things, anti-Black, anti-Indigenous, and anti-Asian, as well as anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Its goal is to identify systemic barriers and gaps in federal policies, programs, and services, kickstart new initiatives, and develop further areas for action. We also know that one very serious challenge we face and a significant factor in the Quebec City Mosque shooting is the proliferation of hate and violent rhetoric online. In fact, the theme for this year's memorial is working together in reducing online hate to prevent real-world violence. As Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said, we must always work to protect our way of life and not give comfort to those who promote things that are not true or give space for hatred or extremism. Right now, our government is working hard to introduce new legislation that will directly address the spread of online hate in Canada in the interest of creating a safer, more equitable, and more inclusive online spaces for everyone. As a government, as Canadians, and as civil society dedicated to diversity and inclusion, I know that none of us will ever stand idly by and allow Islamophobia, racism, discrimination, or hate to go unchallenged, nor will we falter under the threat of unacceptable violence. I encourage you to continue working with your members of Parliament, and I acknowledge joining us tonight is your local Member of Parliament, Sukh Dhaliwal, MP Randeep Sarai, the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Disability Inclusion, the Honourable Carla Qualtrough, and dear friend and colleague, the Minister of National Defence, the Honourable Harjit Sajjan, who you will hear from shortly. As Minister of Diversity and Inclusion and Youth, and as a Member of Parliament for Waterloo, I'm committed more than ever. My Canada is an inclusive Canada. Together, we will build a safer and consciously more inclusive Canada for everyone. We will stand united and prevail. Merci pour votre temps. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your leadership. Please keep well and safe, and know that we stand with you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much, Minister Chagar. Thank you. My Canada is a diverse Canada as well. My Canada is an inclusive Canada as well. And I think everyone here agrees with you when you say those words that are so important. And hearing those words from your federal government is very important, all levels of government. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for the efforts that you're making. And thank you for supporting Islam Unravelled and recognizing Islam Unravelled and the work that Islam Unravelled is doing. It's only because of people like you and your officials and your staff that we've been able to do some of the work that we have been doing. So thank you for joining us. I'd like to, before I call on our next speaker, I'd like to take a moment to just recognize some other people. This is important. We have so many people to thank, so many people who support us, so many people who provide well wishes, and just many of you who are here tonight, I just want to recognize. I think I missed Lauren Dirksen. Thank you, Shirley, for reminding me. MLA for Caribou Chilcotin, thank you for being here. Some special thanks from Islam Unravelled to Chief Ernie Cray, Chiam First Nation, Chief Robert Gladstone from Shwai Village First Nation from the Stolo. Of course, the Mayor of Vancouver, Kennedy Stewart, as Haroon Bai was said earlier. The City Council of Vancouver, in particular, Councillor Christine Boyle for being here tonight, and Councillor Jane Swanson. Haika Chima, Ministerial Advisor to the Honourable David Eby, Attorney General of BC. Naveen Gurn in the Office of the Premier. Janina Campbell from the Green Party of BC. Marine Chaudhry, BC Green Party, and also Asad Sayed from the BC Green Party. Former Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson, former City Councillor Jeff Meggs. Wally Opal, our former Attorney General of BC. Garrett Blunt, former RCMP Hate Crimes Division. Chris DeGale, RCMP National Security. Jazzy Bindra, RCMP National Security. Wendy Hawthorne, Metro Vancouver Transit Police. Chief Constable Adam Palmer from the Vancouver Police Department. Chief David Jones from the Metro Vancouver Transit Police. John Brewer, RCMP E Division. Jane Hansen, RCMP E Division. Inspector Suzanne Muir, VPD. Sergeant Val Spicer from the Vancouver Police Department. Constable Darren Ramdor, Vancouver Police Department. Michael Crawford from the BC Association of Social Workers. Salim Spindari from Mosaic. Imtiaz Poput from the Coalition Against Bigotry. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Harjit Sajjan, the Honorable Harjit Sajjan, someone who I call a friend, a brother, someone who is our Minister of National Defense, and someone who's the Member of Parliament for Vancouver South in his second term. Minister Sajjan knows all about serving others. It's a cornerstone of his life. He has served as a former detective with the Vancouver Police Department, a former Lieutenant Colonel with the British Columbia Regiment, and a longtime advocate for youth education and mentorship programs, and a friend to all communities. Welcome, Minister Sajjan. Thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I am speaking to you today from the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. I would also like to thank the Al Sihan Education Foundation and the Al Jumaam Masjid and countless volunteers for organizing tonight's memorial to honor the victims and their families of the Quebec City Mosque Attack. Thank you to Mufti Asim, Bilal, and to Haroon for taking leadership roles to actively fight and address Islamophobia. I would also like to acknowledge my colleagues from the Lower Mainland, Minister Carla Quattro, Member of Parliament of Dhaliwal, Ken Hardy, and Randeep Sarai for their engagement with the Muslim community and their continually presence in community partnership and local representation that they always create. I'd also like to thank my colleague and very good friend, Honorable Bardish Chagar, Minister of Diversity, Inclusion, and Youth, for joining us today, all the way from Ontario, in remembrance of a very important day. On And thank you for your leadership and your guidance on tackling such difficult issues. As we think of about Ibrahim, Mahmoudou, Khalid, Abu Bakr, Abu Del Karim, and Asdeen, and hold their loved ones in our thoughts, we cannot forget that hatred, bigotry, and Islamophobia has no place in Canada. 6 lives, 6 families are grieving. A country is in shock. Today is not only about remembrance, it's about action. We need tangible changes, sincere dialogue, concrete steps to build our communities and neighborhoods so that Islamophobia, bigotry, and prejudice do not fester and grow. It's a difficult act to weed out these thoughts and those who inflame them. But we as fellow Canadians and allies, we have a responsibility to fight for this. There isn't one single action that can cause this change. It is slow, it is painful, and it is difficult. Because as we can see today, it is often the victims of these horrific crimes that have to push to keep this dialogue moving, and this can be exhausting. But we are all Canadians, and Canada is home. The diversity in our community, in our country, makes us stronger, but we have to fight for it every single day. Change can seem slow. Eradicating ignorance takes time, and a community coming together and learning together takes effort. Regardless of how long it takes or the effort that will be needed, we will not rest until the visceral hate is eradicated from our society, because we will do this together. Tonight, I see many familiar faces and names who have come together to share in their grief to combat Islamophobia. Whether it is coming to the masjid to pay respects after the Quebec City Mosque Attack, or holding a rally at the Vancouver Art Gallery in the wake of the massacre at Christ Church. Time and time again, the community has to come together in the face of violence and hatred. And I see the green squares throughout my screen on the lapels of many of you. This simple act is not only an act of remembrance, it is a pledge to honor and in solidarity with all the victims and their families, a pledge to the 6 women who have lost their partners, a pledge to the 17 children who have lost their fathers, a pledge to Iman, who has been left paralyzed for the rest of his life after this act of terror. Each and every one of us as Canadians have to fight for our friends and for our neighbors, to stand up against Islamophobia whenever and wherever we see it, to call out innuendos, insinuations, and bigotry, and to listen and to learn from each other's experiences. I pledge to do that. We will be there for you as we continue to build a more accepting Canada. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister Sajjan. We're in this for the long run. We're looking forward to building sustainable change. And anytime you talk about change and sustainable change, it's about time and energy and commitment. And it's an investment. It's an investment on behalf of individuals and communities. And I think all of us are prepared to make that investment. We want a brighter future. I don't want my experiences, my children to face my experiences growing up in East Vancouver, just as my dad didn't want his experiences to be faced by me. So every time we're trying to improve, to make progress. And I think I'm really proud of the community for taking the step, organizing these opportunities, behind the scenes, all the work that's being done through Interfaith, as I said before. Thank you for your encouraging words. Thank you for being with us. Before I introduce our next speaker, who's our keynote speaker, I'd like to, I think it's only appropriate at this time that I pass on a special thanks to some of the faith leaders who have worked with Islam Unravelled, who are participating today. Rabbi Emeritus Philip Bergman from Temple Shalom, Rabbi Dan Moskowitz from Temple Shalom, Rabbi Adam Steen, Congregation Beth Israel, Rabbi Peter Rubenstein, Temple Beth Tikva, Reverend Kerry Copeman Haynes, Crossroads United Church and First United Church, Pastor Craig O'Brien, UBC Origin Church and Chairman University Multi-Faith Chaplain Association, Reverend Dan Chambers from the St. Andrews Wesley United Church, Reverend Ross Bliss, Church of Victoria, Ann Kessler, formerly Children, Youth and Families Ministry Coordinator of Christchurch Cathedral, Stephen Epperson, Unitarian Church of Vancouver, Oakley, Unitarian Church of Surrey, and Tony Pironi, Canadian Memorial United Church. And I'd also like to recognize someone who I've seen here on the screen, someone who's under whose leadership some of this work started, the former president of the BC Muslim Association, I call Uncle, Mr. Musa Ismail. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all your work. May God bless you and keep you healthy. So next we have Mufti Asim Rashid. Mufti is referred to a scholarship after many years of research and education. Mufti Asim Rashid was born in Edmonton, Alberta. He studied Islamic sciences here in Canada, in India and England and Pakistan, and holds a master's degree in Islamic studies. He received the designation of Mufti due to his years of scholarship and research, as I said. Mufti Asim served as the Director of Religion and Islamic Education for the BC Muslim Association for 5 years. He is the founder and director of Al-Ihsan Educational Foundation, and as well as Islam Unravelled. He has been a passionate advocate for community and faith-based engagement and understanding. He never tires. We pray for his health. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Mufti Asim Rashid.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Greetings to all of you, and many, many thanks to all of you who have helped in organizing this event. Those of you who have been strategic in the logistics, in the invitations, in putting the program together. And I would like to welcome and express my heartfelt appreciation to all our esteemed guests, our dignitaries, our representatives from the federal, provincial, and municipal governments. Our prayers are with you, and we hope that may you be prosperous and successful in all your endeavors. And may the terms that you are serving for your communities and for our nation, may they bring great khair, great good to all of us, our future generations, and may all of this contribute to the prosperity of our nation. It is indeed heartwarming to see the respect and the dedication that has been presented on this forum, on this occasion. And in fact, I must say, we have been touched since the moment that tragic incident occurred, and our minds were reeling with the repercussions of this, and our hearts were broken, and confusion was completely upon us and had encompassed us. In the midst of all of that, thousands of people came forward. I recall that I was traveling at that time when the incident occurred, and I was in fact south of the border, and immediately the various media outlets started contacting me for a statement, and I hadn't even been fully briefed on what had happened. So the first thing I did was I reached out to my friends in Quebec and asked them, please tell me what is happening, how has it happened, what is the impact? And though I was traveling that same night back to Vancouver, the journey was filled with calls with the press and statements and interviews. And that night, as Brother Haroon mentioned, we got together at Al Jamia Mosque, and we were met by this crowd of people who were just there to show their solidarity, and they were there to express their non-acceptance of this, that we don't accept this, this is not who we are, and we will not allow this to define who we are and what Canada is. And in the moments that followed, beautiful things emerged. Relationships were established, friendships were founded and built. And as Brother Haroon very beautifully explained, it just continued to increase. And it all culminated the next week for us in Vancouver at Jack Pool Plaza, where thousands of people had gathered to express their sorrow and grief, and to express their unity with our community and our brothers and sisters. And it was a powerful display of love. And I can still feel the warmth of those gatherings and those congregations. Under that gentle, wet snow that was falling on us that night, I mentioned a few things to the thousands of people who were so patiently and peacefully gathered. And I would like to repeat some of those things, seeing as this is an event to remember that incident. Whatever happened in the wake of that incident is still very, very fresh in our minds. And I hope this message will be beneficial for all of us. There needs to be, as the Honorable Minister Sajjan mentioned, there needs to be an action plan. On one side, the necessity to express our grief and to remember and reflect. On the other side, an action plan that will make us stronger as a result of this. In light of that, there are some responsibilities that I feel, moral responsibilities, and also responsibilities that fall upon our shoulders just by virtue of being Canadian. The first of those is that we must learn to stand against the oppressor, no matter where that oppressor is from. We are all from diverse ethnic backgrounds. We all have various religious affiliations. We have various and often differing political affiliations and views. Yet we will find that from our ranks, or from those who subscribe to our views or our race or our religion, we will find those who have sentiments of hate and intolerance. So my first request is that we should agree to stand up against the forces of oppression, no matter where they are coming from, and even if they are coming from within our own circles. Our love for and our dedication to justice and peace and the security of our communities and nation should and must supersede our desire to protect those who share our affiliations. The Quran mentions this very clearly. It tells the Muslims to stand firm, kunu qawwamin, to stand firm as those who testify for the truth. In one verse of the Quran, it mentions that even if it has to be against your own people, if your own people are acting unjustly or in a tyrannous fashion, then you must be from those who stand up against them. In another verse with a similar theme, the Quran says that do not allow your dislike for other people. وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا. You may get along with some people and you may find differences with others and not be able to get along with them. However, at no point must your dislike for someone lead you to act oppressively or unjustly. If we can decide upon this as a nation, that anyone who threatens the security of our country, who threatens the harmony of our communities, who threatens the well-being of our families and our future progenies, we will stand up against those forces. We will not give them a voice. We will not give them a place. We will not give them the leeway to go about and carry out destructive acts. We will not allow this. If we can agree to this, then this by itself is a great victory. I'm reminded of a prophetic teaching, a saying of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, "Unsur akhaka zaliman aw mazluman." Help your brother, whether he is oppressing or he is oppressed, whether he is an oppressor or he is the oppressed. So the companions asked, "O Prophet, we can see ourselves helping someone who is oppressed, but how would we help someone who is the oppressor?" And that's where he delivered his message. He says the way to help the oppressor is to stop him from his oppression. So as Muslims, we are duty bound to stop people from oppression. And my request to the Muslim communities all across Canada specifically is to take this as a religious obligation, not just an obligation that comes upon us by virtue of citizenship, but a religious obligation that we should not stand up for dhulm, for oppression, whether it is in a domestic setting or in a community setting or in a national setting, irrespective. We should not and we must not tolerate the oppression that comes out from our own people. And for others, all we can do is request that if they could also have a similar resolution amongst themselves, how powerful that makes us and how powerless that makes the oppressive forces within our society. The second thing that I mentioned is that we should endeavor to support those who are hurt and oppressed, no matter who they are, whether they are from our community or our race, our ethnicity, our religious community, our political community, or they're from someone else. The oppressor is looking for support, and sometimes silence is the greatest support that they can ask for. And the greatest weapon that they have sometimes is that people will not come to the aid of those that they are hurting. But when people are made aware of the fact that no, this is a society that prides itself on helping those and assisting those who are being dealt with in an unfair way, in an oppressive way, in a tyrannous way, and they will not let people get away with it, then it really sort of tightens the noose on those who endeavor to thrive at the cost of hurting others. The third thing is that there's a saying in Arabic that says, "An-nasu a'da'un lima jahilu." People are enemies of that which they know not. When we are unfamiliar with something, we tend to either keep our distance from it and we become wary of it. When that thing that we are unaware of or unfamiliar with happens to be a person, then that distances us from that person. If we don't understand the person or know where they're coming from, and this is a very broad, it's a very broad statement. It has so many applications. If you allow me to give a completely different kind of an example, mental health is such a crucial issue in our communities and in our society. Those people who don't understand it either fear it or they hate it, or they develop biases against those people who are afflicted by this. But in fact, it's a condition. It's a condition of health. It's a condition of well-being. But because we don't understand it, we tend to shun people who are in that position. So coming back to understanding each other as people, where we are coming from, what we are all about, this is going to make us stronger. This is going to reduce the animosities. This is going to diminish that, that sort of hatred, that blind hatred that leads to such destructive acts. So we understood this. I've understood this all my life as someone who grew up as a victim of racism, as a victim of attacks, of physical attacks, just on the basis of race. And we grew up with that. And there were times when we were afraid that this is what the future is going to look like. And there were times where we felt that people were trying to make us feel like there is no place for us here, even though for us, English was our first language. Canada was our home. That's the only country we really knew. That was the only society we really knew. Yet there were people who were actively not just trying to discourage us, but they were using brute force to injure us, to harm us. And it could have taken us to a very dark place. It could have taken us to a place where we hate society and we stand up against society. But I can only thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He guided me, and as He has guided many other people, and it made us stronger, and it made us search for solutions and how do we end it. So this Islam Unravelled initiative is in fact an initiative that addresses the fact that people don't know, and it's not their fault that they don't know, and we respect that. However, what we've seen in Canadian society is, by and large, people are interested in hearing the other side. Whether they accept it or not, it's another story. But people are usually interested in hearing the fact that, yes, there may be another side, there may be another view to all of this. So Islam Unravelled gives people a chance to ask questions, the hard questions. And we live in a society where a lot of our information comes directly from the media, with due respect to the media. But the media is a place where we can get updates on events, but that's not where we learn about cultures and societies and religions and civilizations. That's not what we turn to. We turn to institutions, we turn to educators. So Islam Unravelled is an educational initiative to help those who wish to understand better understand. If we can engage in a learning process together where we learn about each other, then it will make it easier for us to live together. So again, I cannot find the words of appreciation and thanks to all of you, Brother Bilal, Brother Harun. Thank you so much for organizing this in such a beautiful way. I know there are many volunteers in the background as well. Again, it has been expressed, but from my side, I would like to again express my appreciation to all the dignitaries, all the officials, all the hardworking people at various levels of government and from the various agencies that have taken out their time to share this moment with us. It has indeed eased our pain, and it has given us the strength to work harder in the future, to become more resilient, and also to work towards a more unified society and more unified communities. Thank you very much. With that, I will conclude. And I pray that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of you, and may He protect our nation, protect our communities, and protect our future generations. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wassalam. Mufti Asim, thank you so much. Thank you for those words, the reminders. And it's quite simple. It's not rocket science. It's the way you've put it about getting to know one another, educating one another. And the more we get to know one another, the less fear, the less unknown, and the more opportunities for us to connect as communities and as neighbors, as friends, as family. Thank you so much. I'm going to call on Brother Haroon to join me in a second, but my final list of thank yous for tonight. Sergeant Cheryl Simkin from the Metro Vancouver Transit Police. I apologize, I did not mention you earlier. Thank you for all the work that you do with the Muslim community on behalf of the Metro Vancouver Transit Police and law enforcement agencies. a special thanks and a special prayer. Listen, I would ask that you guys remember these people in your prayers. I didn't realize how hard it was and how much work it was and how much time you have to invest in an online event like this. And we've done tons. But this one was special. This one was, there was a lot of detail. There was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of collaboration. And there's so many people behind the scenes who did it. They did it for the sake of, for their creator. And I needed to make sure that I carved some time out. And this is maybe the appropriate time before we let you all go to recognize them. Brother Tariq Tayyib from Islam Unravelled. Mufti Taha Masood, one of our scholars for Islam Unravelled and the Al Ihsan Foundation. Brother Yusuf Al Siraj for everything that you do and the time and effort behind the scenes, the technical stuff, your suggestions. Brother Kamran Bajwa for your help and also solutions around the social media. Thank you so much. Brother Harun Khan, of course, who you guys know well. Sister Mara Arif, another bright, shining star who helped us with a lot of the press communications and the development of the press release and the background information. Also a part of our reaching out to the media and wanting to educate them. Constable Shiraz Hanif was a big part of our planning committee. Thank you, Constable Hanif. Brother Fawad Abbasi, thank you so much for all the work and your suggestions and your recommendations throughout this process. And Brother Muhammad Kamel, thank you so much for your participation during this planning process. We've done this tonight. Don't forget those names. Remember their families. And let's pray that this never ever happens on Canadian soil again or anywhere in the world. But there's a lot of work to do and we're going to continue to do that. Thank you so much for being here with us. I will leave you with just a small quote that really resonated with me a number of years ago and that I try to live by, and that's something that inspires me, by Helen Keller. Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. That's what communities do. Thank you so much. Apologies if I said anything or I didn't mention someone or offended anyone. That's not my intention. Thank you for being with us. God bless you and God keep you safe, all of your family safe during these times. And let's pray that we can get back together soon, very soon. And let's pray for the end of this pandemic. And thank you everyone at all levels of government for everything that you're doing, for keeping us safe and fighting this pandemic on our behalf. Brother Harun?
Thank you, Bilal. We appreciate your work, Bilal. You've been a very tireless advocate for all communities, and you've done tremendous work, and we greatly appreciate you. A few other acknowledgements. Sister Zara Tinholt from our Christian community, a great sister, and we appreciate her work. Annie Ohana, who's on this call as well. We've done a lot of work on anti-racism, and it's important to for people to come together, no matter what your community, to come together and engage with one another. And I think that's really the word that needs to be really expressed here. And Mufti Asim Rashid put that down as well. Hatred and fear is caused by ignorance. When you don't know that the person in front of you is composed of the same flesh and blood as you are, but they may have a different color, they may have a different belief, they may have a different orientation. They're all human beings. We're all brothers and sisters. And this violence that people commit against one another, it's been happening since time immemorial. And it will keep happening because it's part of the human experience, the existence that we're all in. As a father, as a son, I look to the safety of my own children as a huge, very important priority. And I'm sure all of us do. And so for all of our children and for the generations to come, we have to look out for one another. If you see an injustice against one, it's an injustice against all of us. And let us not let the deaths of these people coming to pray in the masjid go in vain. When you see something, do something. And when you can't ask somebody to help, and there are people to help. And so this is how we can unravel the knot of ignorance. And that's an important thing. So Islam Unravelled is a great organization. Mufti Asim Rashid, Tariq Tayyib, the entire team have done tremendous work tirelessly without asking for any credit. And but credit is due. And everybody on this call, we appreciate each and every one of you for taking this time. So I leave you with this, that we're all brought into this world in nations and tribes, different seeds, so to speak, not to fear or mistrust one another, but to know each other. And if we know each other, let's love each other. So thank you. God bless you. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto us all.
Assalamu alaikum.